you're joining us for the first time, maybe you're wondering what CI is and what CHI Talks is all about. We are the Social Innovation and Health Initiative, CHI for short, pronounced as CHI, which means upward and forward looking. CHI is a global network of passionate individuals and institutions who dream of a healthier and more equitable world through social innovation. Since 2014, we have been advancing social innovation in health through research, capacity building, and advocacy. We currently have 13 country research hubs in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and Europe. CHI Talks is a series of monthly webinars that we hold to provide a platform for potential and current partners to connect and find opportunities to collaborate. Welcome! We're glad that you could join another conversation on social innovation today.
All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us here on Zoom and as well as those who are watching on our live streams on YouTube and Facebook. My name is Julia and I am from the CHI Secretariat. So today's session is titled Measuring What Matters, Social Impact Assessment for Meaningful Innovation. And this is in collaboration with the CHI Philippines Hub at the University of the Philippines, Manila. Joining us also are the finalists from the 2024 Helia Castillo Award for Research and Social Innovations in Health, or as we like to call it, GCARC. And I believe we are joined also by participants from all over the globe, and of course from our various CHI hubs. So please feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself as we go along, and you can also share comments throughout the session. And before we begin, we'll also lay down some house rules. So first is to please keep your mic on mute unless you are speaking. Second is we'll make time for questions later, but during the session, you can already drop in your questions or insights on the chat as the session goes along. If you experience any technical issues, please message our team in the chat and we'll do our best to assist. And lastly, this session is being recorded and live streamed. So if you prefer not to be seen, please feel free to keep your video off. You can revisit the playback anytime once we upload it on YouTube. All right, so let's begin because we have a very enriching session for today or tonight for wherever you are joining us from. So to begin, may I call on Dr. Meredith Labarda, the lead of CHI Philippines and the CHI Global Secretariat, and professor at the School of Health Sciences in the University of the Philippines, Manila.
Thank you, Julia, and good day to everyone. We're excited to have this month CHI Talks because this is a very important topic. So my first task actually is to give you a brief background about what GCARC is, which will be the basis actually of one of the basis of the talk this evening. So this program was launched in 2020, the Helia Castillo Award for Research on Social Innovations in Health, or what is commonly known in the Philippines as GCARC. This is a joint initiative by the Department of Science and Technology, the Philippine Council for Health Research and Development, and of course, the Social Innovations in Health Initiative, the Philippines Hub, which recognizes and supports community-rooted innovations addressing systemic health challenges in the country. This evening's CHI Talks is very significant because this is linked to GCARC. Award is actually named after our national scientist, Dr. Helia T. Castillo, who happens to be our speaker's mother for this evening. So this CHI Talks is really special. And this award honors efforts that embody her vision of people-centered, socially grounded research and development. Now in its third cycle, the GCARC has received, in our recent open call, received 70 submissions from across the Philippines, selected top 10 innovations, receiving cash prizes, a training and mentoring package rolled out from March to May this year, and with the top three receiving research and development grants from this DOST PCHRD. But I think after this call and the implementation of our social innovations, a very important question is how do we measure and how do we assess impact, and do our social innovations really have an impact in our communities? I think at the end of the day, that is what Dr. Helia Castillo has been emphasizing. So without further ado, we welcome you on behalf of the Social Innovations in Health Initiative and the CHI Talks for this month. I welcome you all to this CHI Talks. And thank you all. Back to you, Julia.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Meredith. So, like what she said, today's session is all about exploring how social impact assessment can help measure what really matters and tell impact stories in a more meaningful way. So, to give us today's lecture, we are very honored to have with us today Dr. or Professor Nina Castillo Carandang. She is a professor of health sociology and global health, and also the chair of the Department of Clinical Epidemiology, College of Medicine, University of the Philippines. And as Dr. Meredith said, she is also the daughter of Dr. Helia Castillo, whom we have named the GCARSI Award for. So let us all give a virtual applause to Professor Nina.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for inviting me on this very special edition of CHI Talks. And let me just share my slides. So can you already see it, Julia? Not yet.
Yes.
Okay. So good evening
But
again.
it's not on full screen.
Oh, okay. Wait. It's not yet on full screen?
It is already. Thank you, po.
Okay. So thank you again for the invitation from the Social Innovations in Health, WHO and Philippine teams. And the topic today wasn't easy to prepare for, because what matters in one setting might not be the same in another setting too. So measuring what matters is important, and social impact assessment for meaningful innovation. So we'll discuss this, and I hope that we can also have some questions later on. Disclosures, probably my most significant disclosure as of 2 days ago is I was appointed a member of the National Transplant Ethics Committee of the Department of Health. So if you think about it, kidney transplant is an innovation. And does it really matter? To whom does it matter? So the rest of the stuff here are all of the things that I usually do. None of them are directly related to this talk. So some disclaimers: the situation in your communities, local government units, regions, healthcare facilities, organizations, institutions, and among your stakeholders, clients, patients, and their households might be different or similar in some respects to what is mentioned in this talk. We are all in this together. This is a safe space. We're here to learn, to share, and to reflect. Let us put to good use whatever time and positive energy we have together. This lecture alone by itself does not answer all of your questions about social impact assessment for innovation. We all need to study and read and discuss more and collaboratively learn and reflect together. We need to take action. The best way to nurture an environment supportive of good, quote-unquote, social impact assessment and for meaningful, quote-unquote, innovations is through experiential learning, practice, and more practice, with active collaboration from all stakeholders. And probably the most important is you might have all the questions, but I might not have all of the answers. As a health sociologist, and also as a daughter of two scientists, I've realized that in this journey of life, context does matter, and it changes everything. So the questions we ask influence what we see, what we do, and how we relate. If we want to change the world, we need to be willing to change ourselves and change how we see and understand things. There's a need for continuous dialogues and increased synergies within among vulnerable populations, individuals and their families, communities, workers and advocates, organizations, public and private sectors, policymakers, scientists, researchers, a whole of nation, a whole of society approach in step with our global partners. As was mentioned, I am a daughter of two scientists, both very distinguished. And let me quote from my late father, Dr. Leopoldo Sanchez Castillo, who was a dairy production specialist and an animal nutrition advocate also. As early as 1968, this is what my father had to say. The desperate need of millions of people in developing countries should be enough incentive for a research worker to do much effective experimentation designed to alleviate their condition. Thus wrote Dr. Leopoldo Sanchez Castillo in 1968. On the other side of the slide, I quote from my late mother, Dr. Helia Tagumpay Castillo, when she wrote on science, equity, and ethics. I've always believed that when the best science and scientists are devoted to the problems of those who have less in life, that is equity and ethics at its best. If science is to serve a human purpose, what better human purpose is there? And here I put, it's in Filipino, that thing called love of country. So what are our learning objectives? To define meaningful impact in community-engaged health innovation contexts, to develop strategies to align metrics with community values and priorities, to identify common challenges and evidence-based solutions for social impact assessment or SIA in low and middle-income countries, to apply practical, resource-conscious strategies for meaningful impact evaluation. This is the outline of the presentation. So we'll talk about first the innovation measurement paradox. We need to also define meaningful impact, and I'm going to introduce here 4 foundational dimensions. We're also going to align metrics with community values and goals. Briefly talk about common challenges when applying social impact assessment tools in LMICs and some evidence-based solutions. Then we proceed to practical advice for new innovators and researchers. And lastly, we're going to try to have a call to build a movement for meaningful measurement. So let's start off with the innovation measurement paradox. Here's my opening question. If a health innovation improves 1,000 lives, but displaces traditional healing practices valued by the community, has it created meaningful impact? So please pause and read it again and think about it. So this is the paradox of growth. Social innovation has been applied increasingly to achieve social goals, including improved healthcare delivery, despite a lack of conceptual clarity and consensus on its definition. So today's central challenge is to move beyond counting outputs, 1,000 lives in the example above, to measuring transformation that truly matters to communities. So the fundamental question is, how do we assess whether innovations create meaningful change while strengthening rather than disrupting local systems? We have traditional metrics, so we count the number of consultations, we measure facility utilization, we record app downloads, we document training sessions. But do they capture true impact? They don't. What do we need? Health outcomes improved, services culturally appropriate, sustained behavior change, and local capacity build. This is meaningful transformation. I'll just cite the Philippines as an example. We have geographic diversity, over 180 languages. We have a decentralized health system, and we have resource constraints. Hence, if we want meaningful transformation, there should be context-specific solutions. So today's journey is from counting to transforming. And we need to learn frameworks and tools for meaningful community-driven impact assessment. So how do we actually define meaningful impact? What might be meaningful to one person might be insignificant to another person. So I put it here in terms of four-dimensional foundational dimensions. What makes impact meaningful in community-engaged health innovation? First is that there is a community-centered outcome. Communities define and recognize the change. Second is there should be equity and human rights advancement. So the focus should be more on the most marginalized communities, and it should also reduce disparities. Third is systems transformation. So it changes power dynamics and governance relationships. And fourth, there is local agency and ownership, so community control and sustained capacity. So please remember these four foundational dimensions: community-centered outcomes, equity and human rights advancement, systems transformation, local agency and ownership. So SIA includes analyzing, monitoring, and managing intended and unintended social consequences of planned intervention. Sometimes what happens wasn't what we had planned out to do. And that includes your unintended social consequences of planned interventions. Impact is meaningful when communities themselves define and recognize the change. So social innovation indicators, they monitor community engagement and action for health. So for example, we have the CHI community engagement self-monitoring, where the communities identify their own indicators and select their own local monitors who are in charge of collecting data to assess the performance. So these are community-driven assessment priorities, not externally imposed metrics. So what is our key insight here? We start with the community voice. Communities define what successful health outcomes means to them. Local values and priorities shape meaning, measurement frameworks, and cultural concepts of health and healing guide indicator selection. My work is on well-being, and in Filipino, that's called kagalingan. And again, you might have controlled blood sugar, but if your well-being is you feel deprived of eating the food that you like, is your well-being good or not? So here are all the questions that we need to think about. Respect for human rights. This is dimension 2, equity and human rights advancement. Respect for human rights should underpin all actions. And this requires promoting equity and democratization as the major driver of development, planning, which impacts on the worst-off members of society as a major consideration. So the measurement approach here is to focus on the most marginalized. So disaggregate all data by equity markers: income, geography, gender, ethnicity, whatever they value, and track whether innovations reduce rather than increase disparities. So again, in the Philippine example, we have geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas. They should receive priority. Areas where maternal mortality is high, or there is high out-of-pocket spending. Again, there's geographic and economic issues which need to be attended to. Dimension number 3, systems transformation, not just service delivery. So social innovation is innovation in social relationships, innovation in power dynamics, and innovation in governance transformations. It may include institutional and systems transformations. So a critical assessment question here is, has this innovation changed how power flows, how decisions are made, and how relationships function? So in a cross-country study of the Philippines, Malawi, and Colombia, they actually documented strengthening the community system in health, but also in areas such as the environment, economic development, and gender equality. So, have you really innovated relationships, power dynamics, and governance transformations? The fourth dimension is local agency and sustained ownership. So the bottom-up approach enables patients to have control over their own health. Such approaches include patients' agencies in health services and promote their engagement in other health-related behavior. This could be patients, this could be households, this could be families, this could be individuals. Sustainability markers. Can the innovation continue without external support? The whole world is in crisis as far as global health is concerned, with the pullout of US support for global health and other important development programs. Do communities own and control the assessment process? So again, an example from the Philippines, community self-monitoring success is feasible, it's sustainable for monitoring and evaluating health interventions if adequate support is provided and complemented by capacity building and praxis sessions. So an example here I gave is from the Swellig Family Foundation's Health Change Model. Here in the HLGP, they bring mayors, health leaders, health providers to work collaboratively to improve health outcomes. So they reported a dramatic reduction in maternal mortality rate. And what does this actually show? It is community-centered. The training focused on collaborative health improvement between mayors, health leaders, and providers. It is equity-focused. It targeted rural, poor, and hard-to-reach areas. It also is marked by systems transformation, new institutional arrangements and governance, and there is sustained leadership, even when the project has officially ended in that area. So there's local leadership capacity and institutional change. So it is indeed possible to do it if it is planned out carefully and in collaboration with our partners. The third topic I'm going to talk about is aligning metrics with community values and goals. How can we ensure metrics align with community values? We have a misalignment problem. It was difficult to have a common impact measure because of differing goals of engagement between projects. I'll switch hats and put on my clinical epidemiology hat. One of the problems we often encounter in our fellows and even among ourselves when we discuss as researchers. So, what do we actually want to do and want to study, and how do we actually define it? And it's a lot of discussion, negotiation because of the differing goals of engagement. So the solution, for example, again, is a community-driven metric development. So you could use co-design, mixed methods, and lean data collection as examples. Co-design assessment priorities. So for example, 75% of projects exhibited collaboration and shared leadership with communities. You could use the tools of community asset mapping, participatory workshops, value-based priority setting. There is empowerment of beneficiaries and improved quality of interventions. Another step is to use mixed methods approaches. So the framework to assess the impact of translational health research, or FATE framework, combines payback, economic assessment, and case study narrative. The methods include the theory of change and the social return on investment, surveys, interviews, participatory approaches, and we have quanti, quali, and participatory data collection. For in the interest of time, I can't really go very much into the methods. I'm just showing you what is possible. For step 3, you implement lean data collection strategies. So there are 3 principles which are important here. The customer is first. The client is first. You use low-cost technology, and it is a decision-driven collection. So remote survey techniques favoring efficiency and speed while retaining rigor. That's why it's called a lean data collection strategy. You have rapid feedback loops for continuous program adaptation. So what is the outcome here? Metrics that reflect community values while maintaining scientific rigor. So this is a framework for community-driven metric development. So an example here would be from the Kalinga Health TB Care Innovation, where you have a hub and spoke social enterprise model engaging private health providers for improved TB care through intermediary facility linking to our national tuberculosis program. There was value alignment process in action, so community priority setting, especially with regard to reducing TB stigma, improving completion of treatment, and the priority of the providers, better diagnostic accuracy and reporting compliance. System priority is to strengthen the private and the public linkages. So what were the resulting community-aligned metrics? Case detection rate, case notification rate effectiveness, percent of positive cases, and those which are registered on the integrated TB information system, then the treatment success rate and provider satisfaction measures. So the innovation really focused on intermediary facility providing consultation, treatment, diagnostics, and follow-up. So here, practical tools, okay, for community value alignment. So the most significant change technique. Communities define what changes matter the most. And it captures unexpected positive outcomes. It's low cost, it's high impact assessment method. You could also have adapted net promoter score. How likely would you recommend this to your family, your friends, your office mates, your colleagues? It's a valuable tool for social impact assessment, and it's adapted for community health context. Then you could also have community scorecards, so locally owned assessment tools, where you can also track community-defined priorities and enable regular progress monitoring. Participatory video documentation is also another tool for community value alignment. Communities tell their own impact stories from their own perspectives. It captures emotional and cultural dimensions. It's a powerful advocacy and learning tool. So again, going back to the Kalinga Health implementation, start with listening. What does successful TB care mean to different stakeholders? And there was a deliberate attempt to balance multiple perspectives. So clinical outcomes, plus patient experience, plus system integration, and also to adapt over time. So metrics evolved based on community feedback and implementation evidence. I'll now go to the fourth part of my talk. So some of the common challenges when applying social impact assessment tools in LMICs and some evidence-based solutions. So what are the most common challenges? The global reality is that efforts to measure impact have largely focused on health research in high-income countries, reflecting where the majority of health research spending is health research funding is spent. This is actually inspired by the work of my late mother and her colleagues, who in the 1990s headed a commission on health research and development, and they coined the phrase 1090, meaning 10% only of the global wealth is actually spent in the countries where it matters the most. And 90% of whatever research funding is available is spent in the high-income countries. So our approach should be evidence-based solutions. So 5 key challenges: resource constraints, cultural adaptation, technology solutions, capacity building, and policy barriers. So here again are the different challenges. So resource and capacity constraints. For example, there's limited technical expertise, there's weak data infrastructure. So what are some possible solutions? You leverage existing data systems. You use a spectrum approach, the theory of change, then key performance indicators, and go into impact analysis. You promote multi-stakeholder collaboration. For cultural and contextual adaptation, the challenges could be due to geographic and cultural diversity, which affects the relevance of interventions. The solutions would be a praxis-integrated engagement, tailored capacity building, and localized participatory approaches. A third challenge is to balance rigor with practicality. So we need robust evidence versus feasibility constraints in LMICs. The solutions could include decision-driven and real-time mobile data collection, or the use of AI-assisted analysis, for example, TB screening with different networks. Another challenge is to ensure sustainability and local ownership. So there's a risk of collapse post-external funding, which is the current crisis that we have in global health all across the globe. The solutions, we need to train local evaluators, use simple adaptable tools, integrate assessments into local government systems. Political and institutional barriers are also among the challenges. There is inconsistency, especially when you have a new set of officials who are just elected. So 2 days ago, we had new officials enter into office, and we don't really know how good or how bad they are. And by the time we find out how good or bad they are, they already have done tremendous harm. So there is no continuity of policies. There are limited resources. There are shifting priorities. The solutions could include multi-level policy engagement, data-driven advocacy, and cross-sector stakeholder coalitions. So I'm in the fifth part of my talk, some advice for new innovators and researchers. Let me just put here a caution. I am not really an innovator. In my family, it is my father who was an innovator, and my husband who's also an innovator. And my husband and his colleagues have now actually been selected as part of the Dado Banatao Innovation Camp. So for the next 12 months, they will be taught how to actually transform their ideas into a workable innovation. So what's the key? We start simple. But starting simple also means thinking systems. So the progressive measurement approach. For limited resource context, we begin with community asset mapping and co-design. Use progressive measurement approach, you build capacity over time. You focus also on mindset shifts from proving to improving. The immediate actions for months 1 to 3 begin with community asset mapping. Why do we want to do this? We want to understand existing measurement systems and community strengths. Local knowledge is valuable. How do we do this? Simple community walkthrough and stakeholder interviews. You use existing local systems. What's the cost? It's minimal. Mainly time investment. It's high impact, low cost. Second thing that you could do, aside from community asset mapping in the first 3 months, is to co-design your theory of change. Framework is the first stage of assessment. So what is your theory of change? May be significantly easier than the most advanced stage. The output is a shared understanding of how change happens in this community. So the community validates your assumptions and adds local context. Short-term development over the next 3 to 12 months, you implement stepping stone metrics. And the philosophy behind this is that some readily available metrics will be stepping stones or proxies to wish list metrics, including simple counting. So what are some examples here? Instead of behavior change, you track service utilization. Instead of community empowerment, you count community-led initiatives. Instead of system strengthening, you measure new partnerships form. So these are stepping stone metrics. The fourth thing that you could do is use lean data principles. So the customer or the client first mindset. Shift away from reporting towards creating value for customers and clients. So what happens to them? What added value do you actually bring them? That is an important question. Technology integration, remote survey techniques for efficiency and speed while retaining rigor. And decision-driven collection. Only collect data you will actually use for decisions. All researchers are guilty of this. We collect more data than what we can actually use because we say, oh, we're already here anyway. Let's ask everything that we want to ask. But then we don't use the data that we collect. Medium-term capacity building. So year 1 to 2, build local evaluation capacity. There should be community ownership. The community members are trained as evaluators, so local leadership development is important. There is sustainability focus. Community engagement, self-monitoring is feasible if adequate support is provided. It's a practical approach. Start with simple data collection and analysis training, and you build the skills progressively. The sixth is to create feedback loops for continuous adaptation. So it's a learning approach, continuous improvement for scaling and impact maximization. You also have community sessions where there's regular reflection meetings to discuss findings and then you adapt as needed. There is also innovation evolution where you use assessment insights to improve your intervention. Resource smart strategies for LMICs. We need to leverage technology thoughtfully. So mobile-first approaches, so SMS surveys, WhatsApp group, Viber, Telegram, TikTok, whatever works. Simple mobile apps. AI-assisted analysis, so deep learning neural networks for TB screenings, an example, Google Forms analytics. So we need to leverage technology thoughtfully. Partnership strategies, academic collaboration, student research products, free software, faculty expertise. The expertise in academia is there, but on both sides, people don't really know how to interact with each other. Then there's also government integration, aligned with existing systems, contribute to official data collection. Cost-effective methods. So community scorecard is a low-cost, high-impact assessment tool. Or also the most significant change. It's a quantitative method requiring minimal resources. And photo voice. Community members document change through photography. Anyway, we're fond of selfies and groofies. Might as well also document any particular changes that we think are happening in our communities as we go along. Critical success factors for new innovators. So it requires a shift in the mindset. First, from proving to improving. We use assessment for learning and adaptation, not just accountability. We embrace negative findings as learning opportunities. Second is from external community-driven. People have a right to be involved in decision-making about planned interventions that will affect their lives. Number three, from perfect to practical. Start with what you can do now, improve over time. There's typically a good reason why assessment is at a particular level. So what are some red flags to avoid? Assessment burden. If data collection takes more than 10% of program time, then you need to simplify. External dependency. If assessment requires expensive consultants, you need to find simpler approaches. Community fatigue. If people stop participating in assessment, you need to redesign the process. So the key principle here is to keep assessment simple, community-owned, and sustainable. Your journey starts now. And remember, start simple, think systems. Begin with community asset mapping and co-design. Build measurement capacity progressively over time. Community voice is central. Including communities in the health research process means we can provide results that match their actual needs. Systems change first, so social impact maximization is vital as it positions the social economy as an agent of change. So we need to measure relationship changes, power shifts, and governance improvements. There should also be sustainable ownership. Build assessment capacity that outlasts your project. Create systems communities can maintain and adapt. So true sustainability test if the community can maintain and adapt whatever you have started with. Your work in meaningful impact assessment is not just about better evaluation. It's about ensuring innovations truly serve the communities they aim to help. So I am approaching the end of the talk. So this is quite a lengthy conclusion because I wanted to drive home certain points. We need to build a movement for meaningful measurement. And the path forward is from measurement to transformation. So our vision, social innovation in health that truly services communities through assessment systems owned and driven by local voices, where measurement becomes empowerment and innovations create lasting change. What are the core principles for transformative social impact assessment? Again, to emphasize, community voice is central. Including communities in the health research process means that we can provide results that match their actual needs. Assessment thus becomes an empowerment tool, not just a measurement exercise. Second principle for transformative SIA is to remember that systems change over service delivery. Social impact maximization is vital as it positions the social economy as an agent of change. So measure relationship changes, changes in power shifts, and governance improvements. The third principle is sustainable local ownership. So build assessment capacity that outlasts your project. Create systems communities can maintain and adapt. Your role in the global movement for the CHI network to share tools and frameworks. So share tools and frameworks across hubs, so cross-hub collaboration. Document what works. Document what works in different cultural contexts, evidence-based learning. Advocate for policy support, and this includes for a supportive policy environment, so systems level change. For recipients of the award, which is named after my late mother, this is my plea to you. You need to pioneer community-driven assessment approaches. Demonstrate that meaningful measurement is possible with limited resources. Influence how impact is valued in the Philippine health system. You need to lead the transformation of impact assessment in Philippine health innovation. The final call to action, the future of social innovation in health depends on who decides what matters, not just what we measure. It requires community ownership of assessment processes, creates more just and responsive health systems, build sustainable change through meaningful measurement. Community ownership of assessment is equivalent to innovation, sustainability, and transformative impact. Remember, impact assessment is not just is about empowerment, not just evaluation. Remember too that innovations must truly serve communities they aim to help. So start today, start simple, start with community. Build the movement for meaningful measurement, one innovation at a time. This is a community-aligned approach to social impact assessment. So it's rooted in community values. So center on the perspectives and priorities of the community. It's adaptive to community goals, reflect what the community aims to achieve, and adapt as needs evolve. Then you look here also at it being grounded in community-driven indicators. So incorporate qualitative and quantitative measures shaped by community input and focused on achieving impact. Evaluate whether actions create long-term equitable benefits. Some reminders. Social reality is more complex than theories, and social change takes time. Reality is more interesting than our theories. This is a quote from the late Father John Carroll, who was my supervisor for my first master's degree. He was an American Jesuit sociologist who spent most of his time and died and is buried in the Philippines. And this is a reminder which he has. The present moment is crucial. The work to be done is urgent. Real change takes time. And yet, precisely because it does, there is no time to lose. And I'll end up with a quote from my mother. Ethics is ethics in the mind and in the heart. You know it from the top of your brain to the tip of your toes. So everything that we do should be based on ethical behavior and practice. On the right side of the screen, you see the beautiful hibiscus Rosa sinensis Helia Castillo, which is also named after my late mother. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Nina. That was really a powerful conclusion to a really great talk. So maybe we can give a virtual round of applause. I can't see you online, but I could feel the applause with the claps. So I know we sort of targeted this talk towards innovators making their social impact assessments, but we can see through the lecture that it's really applicable to other fields or other works, like researchers like us making our proposals, program managers planning their M&E plans, and maybe whatever line of work you're in. Prof. Nina really gave us the building blocks or concepts, methods that can help us really align with community values and measure our impact, but also use that um, assessment, use that measurement as a way to empower our communities. All right. So one of the things Prof. Nina highlighted is context. Context matters in how we can use social impact assessment or how to use these different things. And I've seen in the chat that we have many participants from different parts of the globe. So maybe you can share with us maybe what challenges resonated with you or what strategies resonated in your context based on what we've talked about. But we'll also be calling on specific innovators from the Philippines to reflect on what's been shared and also how they can measure their metrics or measure their impact through their innovations. So maybe I'll give a minute to whoever wants to share. Maybe one. All right. We have a lot of thank yous on the chat. But, you can write them down or raise your hand. But maybe everyone is very taking it in for a minute. So maybe we'll call on first. I'll pass it on to Pam to call on the innovators who will reflect. But after, we'll still have a bit of time for the general audience to also reflect on themselves. So is that all right, Prof. Nina? If you can stay for a bit. All right. So I'll pass it on to Pam.
Hello.
But
Hello,
please keep
everyone.
the questions and insights coming.
Yes, just send them in. So, hi, I'm Pam Pasco. I am the hub manager for CHI Philippines. So, I'm here to introduce and moderate our panel of innovators from Chikarsi. But maybe as a continuation of what Doc Meredith already discussed earlier during her opening remarks, I'm just going to go through and introduce the finalists of this cycle's finalists for GCARSI 2024 before we invite into the floor the innovators who will be speaking today. So first, we have Katatagan Plus. So these are our finalists. Yes, we have our first is Katatagan Plus, a community-based mental health program using trained non-specialists to support youth and vulnerable groups in crisis-affected areas. Next, we have Lisa Robot, a service robot enabling remote care and logistical support in hospitals developed for safer healthcare delivery during COVID-19. Next, we have Medical Mobile Clinic, a traveling clinic offering health services to low-income and indigenous communities in Pampanga. And then we have Mnemonic Memory Training Program, a cognitive training program for helping older adults improve memory confidence through proven techniques. Next, we have PCS Act Now from Philippine Cancer Society, a mobile and digital screening initiative improving breast and cervical cancer detection among underserved women. And then we have Refer Quezon, a 24/7 provincial hotline that connects patients to teleconsults, referrals, and health services under UHC. And then we have Telepsychiatry for OFWs, so a secure mental health service offering culturally sensitive psychiatric support to overseas Filipino workers through collaborations. So for our winners, which is our top 3, we have in third place, Cancer Navigators Program. It's a patient navigators provide coordinated cancer care, financial guidance, and support networks across the region. And then for our second place, we have Transition of Care Program, a hospital to local government unit care model that links discharged patients to local health services for continuity and reduced hospital readmissions. And last but not the least, our first place for this year, the cycle, is Flexi Coaching Program by QC Kabahagi Center, a parent-led coaching model delivering hybrid therapy for children with disabilities, expanding across Quezon City through local government and academic partnerships. So, okay, so from these 10 finalists, we actually have 3 with us here today who would be gracefully sharing with us their thoughts or reflections from the lecture that Professor Nina shared with us today. So first, from PCS Act Now, from Philippine Cancer Society, we have Dr. Herdy Luna, the oncology manager of the Executive Action Team. And then we also have Arthur Gallio. So he's also the Chief Medical Officer for Medical Mobile for ABCs for Global Health, which had Medical Mobile Clinic. And lastly, from Flexi Coaching Program of QC Kabahagi, we have Ma'am Karen Sagun, their director. So please welcome to the floor our very lovely innovators. So see, Doc Herdy, Doc Atoy, and Ma'am Karen. I'll just be waiting for the... Okay, is everything...
Yes. Good
is
evening.
everyone
Can you
here?
hear me?
Yes, you're audible, Doc Herdy.
Alright. So it's a pleasure to be part of this program, and learning is we are all continuously learning, and it's nice to have a structured learning, especially for us who are in the grassroots, learning from the community, their needs, and how to bridge care gaps. So I hope that through the lecture, many will continuously aspire to improve their own innovations, as well as reach out to the community for improvement of unmet needs. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc Herdy. I think we can move on to the next slide. I'll just give a prompt maybe to help our innovators kind of further reflect on the lecture. So our question, but feel free to just share any insights from the lecture as well. But if you would prefer to answer with this question as your guide, so in the context of your innovation, how do you define meaningful impact, and how can assessing this impact at your current stage help guide and improve your efforts moving forward? So, Ma'am Karen or Dr. Herdy, would you have any answers? And if Doc Atoy is also there, I'm not sure since he hasn't turned on his video. So hopefully he's still there.
Yes, I
Yes,
can
Ma'am Karen.
share.
Ah, sorry. Doc Rudy, you can go after Ma'am Karen. Is that all right? Okay.
Hello po, good evening. So, actually, Dr. Karandang presented a very rich um, knowledge about social impact, and it has actually helped me reflect more about the program of Flexi Coaching in Quezon City. So while Dr. Karandang was discussing, I was recalling how we were also trying to define what meaningful impact was. And I recall that we have different levels of impact as defined by our different stakeholders. So number one, since we are really catering to the indigent or the children with disabilities living in low socioeconomic households, we had to involve them or make them participate in defining what is a successful program for them. And when we talk to them, they provided different insights into, in general, it's meaningful participation in the different occupations that they are engaged in based on their development or their lifespan. So that includes inclusive education, or being enrolled in schools, or being able to play, or being able to have their own contribution to the community. And this was surprising to us because they wanted to care for the environment. And with that, meaningful participation, not just as an individual, but as a part of the community, we think that that is a meaningful impact that we also want. So being guided by our primary stakeholder, who would be the children with disabilities. But of course, we know that um, the enablers of the participation of the children would be the members of their households. And so when we asked the families of the children with disabilities, they have defined this meaningful impact as being confident or having that self-efficacy in managing their own children, or in being able to advocate for what is best for their children. So being able to see families from being passive to becoming more active advocates of the rights of their children, then for us, that would be something very meaningful. And last but not the least, at the level of the community and our partners, we see that while the Flexi Coaching program has expanded our reach in terms of number, because we have increased our reach to 45%. But then we try to look into where the parents and the families are coming from. If we are able to reach communities that are farther from the Kabahagi Center, and if we have more partner universities who return to the center or to the program to volunteer, not just for the grades, but they are really doing it for service to the community, then we see that as something meaningful as well. So, and then how do these meaningful impact defined help us guide in improving our efforts to move forward? As Dr. Karandang mentioned earlier, it has helped us to balance quality versus reach optimization. Like, while there is this pressure, or there are key performance indicators that we have to attain, being reminded of what is meaningful to the different levels of stakeholders that we have sort of brings us back to um, the core of why we're doing this program. Why are we innovating the way that rehabilitation is being done, as compared to the different hospitals or the different rehabilitation centers in the country. So that's the first thing. And of course, the flexi coaching program that we have is not set in stone. So we look forward to redesigning it again with the community, and we look forward to doing a lot of tweaks, to improve the program to make it more responsive to the needs of our stakeholders. And that ultimately will define where our resources will be utilized, so that we would be able to maximize the resources that would be given to us by the Quezon City government, and so that we would be more informed about how we can better mobilize also our partners from the private sector. So I guess that's how the definition of these would help us in moving our efforts forward.
Thank you for that, Ma'am Karen. So to kind of just put it all together, I think what really struck me with what you shared is that we want to go back to our whys. So, and our whys is the community. So it's really nice that you got to share po about how you got to engage with your stakeholders, the partnerships, and also how this could be directed to connected to the resources, the management, and how you engage with your funder, your supporters, like the government, the QC government. So I think we can move on to Doc Herdy, if you could share a bit about your innovation and your answer.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for us to share the Philippine Cancer Society's Act Now. So it means assess, access care, triage, navigate now. So it's an integrated mobile cancer prevention platform that we hope to transform and save more lives. So through digital patient education, risk assessment portal with integrated with the mobile bus unit, we aim to have a comprehensive breast and cervical cancer screening in the marginalized, underserved communities. So we're not just bridging healthcare. The hospital team goes now out to the communities. We're also hoping to bring hope where patients feel lost, and they fear cancer. So right now, how we define meaningful impact, it means transforming cancer from a death sentence to preventable outcome. So first, lives directly saved. We project around 850 lives saved annually over 5 years through early detection. And we have 85% of women with abnormal results bridged to the next diagnostic care or treatment within 30 days. And we aim for zero abandonment through patient navigator's guide. This will also lead to another impact, which is equity being created. So we're hoping to minimize the barriers that reduce or worsens patient outcomes, geographic barriers, distance, the stigma of cancer, and also the financial constraints. In addition, by placing navigators in the community, training them, engaging them, the communities are empowered. So each women's screen becomes an ambassador for health in her family and also her community. Our trained community ambassadors don't just facilitate screening, but they create family networks of women advocating for own health and better care and navigating to the next available resources. In effect, health systems are hopefully strengthened, and not just detecting cancer, but also building local capacity, especially using the integrated digital patient education through the ACNAU portal, and also the seamless coordination between navigators that generates savings. We know that at stage 4 cancer, we have financial catastrophic scenarios, and we hope that through early detection, we might be able to minimize cost. A health modeling published by the British Medical Journal Global Health analyzed that the PCS Act now is able to decrease death by 29% over 5 years. So how impact assessment guides our efforts? It was mentioned earlier, the real-time optimization happens through our annual reviews. And when we see these uptakes and patterns, we adjust prioritizations and also the mobile routes and training. We also have strategic decision making from our performance data. So we identify the communities that needs further help or is ready for expansion. Right now, Quezon City Act now is in partnership with the local government unit, Quezon City Health Department, who also improve their screening strategies. So we use the evidence to secure funding, the data for funding, and also build partnerships. And of course, through all of this information with continuous learning, we have assessments that reveal which barangays have highest screening uptakes and where to navigate for further treatment. And then also these community ambassadors can also create networks which could also improve coordination and also drive service refinement, training enhancement, and also technology upgrades. So in a way, our impact assessment creates a cycle of measuring screening outcomes and community response, analyzing what's working, what's not working, and why. And we adjust our protocols as well as our resource allocation. We also implement evidence-based improvement and also monitor results to restart the cycle of evaluation and implementation. So for us, meaningful impact for ACNAW means preventing cancer deaths while building empowered, health literate communities. Our impact assessments serve both a compass and an engine, guiding daily decisions while powering improvements that maximize saves life. So the ultimate measure of our success will when every woman in every community have the power to protect their health, when early detection becomes the norm rather than the exception, and when preventable cancer deaths become history. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you po, Dr. D. So that was a very comprehensive sharing po of what PCS Act now does. And so maybe we can move on to Doc Atoy, Doc Arthur Regalio, last but not the least, to share a bit from.
Good evening, everyone. So I see that we have foreign guests here. So to give context to what we do, our medical mobile clinic aims to provide primary care services to the underserved and unserved communities of Pampanga. Actually, our ultimate goal is actually to make it a model that can be scalable across the country. So for us, meaningful impact goes beyond numbers served. It is bringing essential life-saving healthcare to those who would otherwise go without. So it is in the context of our mobile clinics. It's about actually early diagnosis, prevention of complications, since non-communicable diseases are the leading cause of death here in the Philippines. So we're actually targeting that. But as we went along with our program, since there was an improvement in the access of healthcare, we also now are also seeing acute cases. So we do not shun away from shun patients away. So it's, oh, we're only focusing on non-communicable diseases. But since there is already improving access, so we also cater to them. And then how do we define meaningful? In fact, actually, it's about seeing how your patients are, their blood pressures, their blood sugars are being controlled, complications are being prevented, and seeing behavioral changes like they're being more compliant to their medications. They're being, actually, there's some patients are the ones recruiting other patients into our program. So they saw the value of preventive care. So that is how we define it. Then we also cater to those indigenous populations. So we have the Ayetas in our province. So we also cater to their needs, though their needs is not more on the it's more on the communicable diseases, but we also cater to their needs as well. And then when we were invited to attend this radio talk show where we were broadcasting our services, there was a phone-in survey question as well that they were inviting us from the provincial jail. So inmates were asking also for um, primary care services that they were lacking inside the jail. So that for us is that people seeing that the value of what good health is really what is impactful to us. So how does this assessing our impact? Actually, we're just not measuring numbers. We're also measuring um, how many are coming in, how many are not staying, and then evaluating why they not staying. And most often than not, it's because of other, it's for work or family related. Sometimes it's even geographic and climate because where we're going to places where it's very hard to reach. Floods can hinder patients from coming to our clinics, and even um, disruptions in transportation. So that made us innovate more on how we can better serve them. That's why we are now trying to incorporate and integrate telemedicine into our platform so that we can still reach them even if we are not physically there. So what resonated with me with Dr. Karandang's lecture is the collaborative approach in our delivery of our services. We are not just doing this all alone. We are working with local government units and other private sectors as well to scale up and to um, expand the services that we are offering to the community. So sometimes there are also communities where we are the only healthcare available there. So fortunately enough, I have a specialty training that I can use actually in delivering services into additional services to these communities. So knowing what our partners can offer and how we can integrate this, we can actually expand and scale more into the services that we are offering. So that is it for our innovation.
Thank you so much, Doc Arthur. So, what I got from Doc Hurdy and Doc Arthur is really uh building on that equitable access for the services they offer for the different advocacies that they want to push forward for the different communities they serve. So it was really nice to hear from these three representatives from our GCARC finalists. So thank you so much for being here. I actually want to particularly link this to one of the points mentioned during Professor Nina's lecture. So the quote that impact is meaningful when communities themselves define and recognize the change. So hearing it first from our innovators, also how they define the change or the impact they want to achieve, it's really a valuable insight to our lecture today. So thank you so much for being here and giving some of your time today to share about what you do and how you assess impact, how you see your innovation changing the lives of the community you serve. So although we kept this segment really short, we're really grateful, and I would like to give it back to Julia for any for synthesizing or for any announcements for this CHI talk. So thank you so much.
All right. Yes, those were some great reflections from everyone. So thank you so much for participating in today's session of CHI Talks. So well, for the interest of time, I'm already closing the program, but thank you everyone for staying on. And if you have additional insights, of course, to the reflections of the innovators or to the lecture of Prof. Nina, you can also send them through our survey and we'll make sure to get those through. So again, thank you to Prof. Nina Castillo Carandang, our research speaker, for her very engaging lecture, and to the innovators of the 2024 run of GCARC. Congratulations, and I'm glad that it was meaningful for you guys, that there was a lot of reflection in the academic lens, and then the way you applied it to your own work was very inspiring. So we learned so much from all of you, and maybe you can share your contact details if people want to connect or ask more questions. So if you'd like to know more about CHI, please visit our website or any of the social media pages as you see on top of the screen. And you can also scan the QR codes on the screen. So the one on the left is for the survey again. You can send your feedback and also receive a attendance certificate. And the one on the right is an advanced registration for our next session, which will be happening towards the end of the month. So it's about, we'll get to know what it's like to join a health hackathon. So we'll have the Africa Health Research Institute to share about their work and their experience. So all previous CHI Talks episodes are on CHI's YouTube channel. So you can revisit this lecture, this reflection after tonight or today, wherever you're joining us from. So once again, thank you so much for joining us at CHI Talks, and we hope to see you again on our sessions in the future. So thanks, everybody. I'll keep the slide on for people who need to scan. Thank you. Have a good day.
Sorry for our panel, and if Doc Nina is still there, maybe we can take a photo, like a group photo. Is that all right, Julia?
Yes, yes.
Remembered now.
Great idea. I will just put you guys on the spotlight. Give me a second to fix the... Okay.
Maybe you can unshare the screen, Julia.
Okay. Let's take a photo. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you so much.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you
Thank you
po.
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 Thank you, everyone.